Welcome to the Fairfax Cryobank webinar this afternoon. We are going to be talking about getting started choosing a sperm donor. And just a note, this webinar is being recorded, as is the video portion, which is just me chatting with you. The recording will be shared with all of our registered participants via email after the webinar is completed, and it will include the Q&A section at the end of the video. Okay. So today you have me, Michelle Oddie. I am the Lab Director and Director of Operations for Fairfax Cryobank. I'm going to be presenting the content. Morgan Barker is our Senior Marketing Manager, and she is going to moderate the Q&A section of the webinar. And we are going to be joined by Christy Burke, our Assistant Director of Client Services, who is going to help me to answer all of your questions. I always like to start a webinar by reviewing what our goals are, just to keep us in check, make sure that we're accountable and that we cover all of the topics. I'm going to explain the different donor categories that you can choose from. We'll review some donor products. I will do a live donor search on the website to demonstrate how you can select your donor. I'll talk about some of our donor selection services in case you need some assistance in choosing your donor, and then talk a little bit about the resources that the Cryobank offers to you as well. And then of course we'll have our Q&A. But before we get started, I would love to get some answers from you all. Just have you started the search for your sperm donor? You're going to be able to answer this question right on your screen, and it'll just help to give me a sense of where you are on your journey and what level of detail I should go into. Great. Okay, perfect. The majority of you are in the process, so hopefully this will help you to narrow down your choices. There's a good number of you that haven't quite gotten started yet, so this is perfect. This is a good intro for you. And for those of you who've already picked your donor, I hope that I can offer some insight into the process and maybe answer some questions for you. Okay, excuse me. I always like to recommend to anyone who is looking for a sperm donor that the best way to get started is really just to sit down, have a think, and create a list of the characteristics that you value in people. You know, things about yourself that you value, that are important to you, things in the people that you care most about and respect that are important to you. This can be anything from physical characteristics to ethnic background, personality type, education, you know, the category, whether they're an ID release or a non-ID donor. There are over 460 donors on our donor search, so this will help you start to sort of whittle down that list. You know, give yourself the time to really think about this. You want to go into this thoughtfully and carefully, because this is an incredibly important decision, and we have a huge donor pool for you to select from, so we want to get you that perfect match. There's three things that I want to cover that are important in the very beginning. The donor brand codes, which I'll go through, donor categories, and then of course the specimen types. The specimen type isn't important necessarily in the very beginning. That's more important when you're ready to place your order. So one of the benefits of working with Fairfax Cryobank is that you're actually getting three incredible quality brands in one. We have acquired two cryobanks over the years. Back in the early 2000s, Fairfax Cryobank acquired Cryogenic Laboratories, and then a few years ago, we acquired Pacific Reproductive Services, both of which were incredible cryobanks that had high quality donors that we've now added to our catalog. So when you go onto the search, you'll see that when you put all of your selection criteria in, you may get a donor that has a CLI or a PRS in there, and it just means that they were a part of one of those cryobanks. We have the same specimen quality specimen quality standards for all of the vials that we ship out, and the donor testing met the standards at the time of the donor production. I will say that some of the older donors are going to have different genetic testing, just because genetic screening and testing technology has come such a long way in the past 20 years that there's a lot of variability in what was done at the time of the donor's production. And we can talk about that later as well. So there are two main donor categories that you're going to want to consider. Non-ID donors are men who participate in the sperm donor program, sign an agreement signing away their parental rights, just like the ID donors. But in this instance, these men are not comfortable having their identifying information released to either the recipients or the children. So we honor that. We also offer ID donors, and these are men who do consent to our releasing their identifying information to your registered child once they're 18 or older. Now, there's a little caveat here. We do allow non-ID donors to contact us and say, look, I've changed my mind. I donated 15 years ago. I've rethought this. I'd like to allow for the release of my information. And the reason we implemented this change has to do with regulatory requirements, specifically of the state of California. They require that non-ID donors be allowed to consent to release of their information. We proactively are asking our non-ID donors who are retired this question. They can also reach out to us through our website. The majority of non-ID donors are remaining non-ID, and that means that they are saying, no, I still don't want my information released. Where you would find that information is in the donor summary profile, and I will show you that on the website. And just another note, starting in 2020, Fairfax Cryobank is only now producing, going forward, only ID donors. That means that the donors have consented to the release of their information. It does not mean that anybody has to get that information. It still is in the hands of your registered child. I'm sure there's questions, and if there are, I'm happy to answer them during the Q&A. I mentioned specimen types. We offer multiple specimen types. Now, what this means is the vial of sperm that you're purchasing has been processed or prepared in a different way. We offer ICI, which is intracervical insemination, and it's a standard sample. It hasn't been washed. The seminal fluid hasn't been removed, and they will have at least 10 million total motile cells. Now, those vials can be used for multiple procedures, and I'm going to get into that. The IUI prep, which is intrauterine insemination, those are washed samples. Those are prepared so that you can purchase them, have them shipped directly to your medical provider, and they don't have to do any manipulation of the sample. They can just pull it up in the catheter after it thaws and do the IUI insemination. Now, the reason it's washed is that seminal fluid contains proteins and hormones that can cause severe cramping if they enter the uterus. Semen samples don't enter the uterus. They go to the cervix, and the sperm swim through the cervix into the uterus to meet up into the fallopian tube to meet the egg. So the IUI preps are specifically prepared and remove that seminal fluid so that your medical provider can do an IUI with no additional manipulation. If, for example, your donor doesn't have IUI available and there's only ICI available, as long as your medical provider has the ability to wash those samples, meaning they receive it, they thaw it, they wash out the seminal fluid with a media, and then they would use the sample for an IUI. We also offer ART, or assisted reproductive technology preparations. These are vials that are created to have fewer total motile sperm in them for people who are undergoing IVF or ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection, and in IVF is in vitro fertilization. Those procedures need fewer sperm than an insemination. And so we wanted to create these vials with fewer total motile sperm at a lower price point if you are undergoing that. Now, if your donor happens to only have ART vials in inventory and you are planning to do an insemination, you can simply combine 2 ART vials for, and that should be equivalent to or better than 1 non-ART vial. Now, we made this great infographic. Alexis in our marketing department, I'm going to pull this up for you, created this great infographic. How can I use my vial type? I hope you can all see this. It has a key at the top, which explains to you what each of the acronyms stands for. I love a key. And then you can see as you scroll down on this page, it's a simple infographic that'll tell you exactly what your options are if you know what your procedure is going to be. So for example, If you know that you're going to do an at-home insemination next month during your next cycle, you have several options. You can purchase one ICI vial, that's the preferred, because it's prepared for that purpose. You can purchase one IUI, it's the pre-washed, but there should still be those 10 million total motile sperm in there, which is enough for an insemination, including a home insem. You can combine 2 ICI ART or 2 IUI ART. So you can see right here what your options are for that procedure. And again, in office is here, and then the ART procedures. And that's right on our website under specimen information. Okay. So rather than go through this list of items, what I thought I would do is just mention that we have free products. I'll go through those when we're on the website. And we also have some additional products for purchase that are a little bit more detailed. We get a lot of questions about the Fairfax Face Match. We implemented this because people really wanted to be able to find donors who resemble somebody, whether you want to find a donor that has characteristics similar to yourself, to a partner, a spouse, a friend, a celebrity, whoever. You just need to have a good frontal photo of them. They can be smiling, but nothing wacky, no crazy facial expressions. And you can upload it on our website, and I'll show this to you on the site as well. And what it does is the system then takes the image that you've uploaded and it compares it to images that we have of all of the donors that are for internal use only. You don't get to see those photos. Those are just for this program. And what you're going to get is a results page. And it's not going to be any exact matches, because clearly we're all pretty unique, unless you're a multiple. If you're a twin, you know, an identical twin or triplet. Most of us are unique in the way that we appear. And it's about resemblance. So if you're looking for someone with high cheekbones and a strong brow, you know, if you look at the green dots that are on the screen, these are the points that it's matching. So you're going to see results that are ranked from high to medium to low. It is not common to have many high matches. It is more common to have multiple medium and multiple low matches. From time to time, you may get a couple high matches, which is wonderful. It gives you more options, but it's a really great way to sort of narrow down the list if that's important to you. I want to mention this before we go to the website, because when we go to the website, you're going to see that I have access to all of the products, because we set it up so that I would be able to show you things. What I actually have is the full access package and our unlimited access package options. These are 90-day packages that offer you unlimited access, meaning every donor on the website. You know, all of these things are free. This is pretty intuitive. You guys can go to the website and research it and decide what's best for you. The reason I recommend this is that it's very economical. Rather than paying a la carte for multiple products, for multiple donors, you're going to be able to pay one fee for 90 days and see all of the products for all of the donors. So let's go to the website. Okay. All right, so you can start as simply as this on our homepage by plugging in some options, but I want to give you an overview of all of the things that you can choose. As I mentioned, I recommend that list because there are a ton of options on here. First, let's start with that face match. If you have a file, you'll upload it here, and you can also start to narrow it down. But you would upload the photo and then just hit search, and you're going to get some results. But that's right at the top here. Super easy to find, very easy to use. And we have hundreds of thousands of uploads that have happened over time, and people are really happy with the program. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely go for it. But as you can see, the basic search starts as it sounds, very basic. You can start by choosing, let's say, I only want ID donors. I happen to be tall, so I'm going to choose donors that are tall. I'm open to any ancestry, I'm open to any hair color, but if you had choices, you could go ahead in there and choose those. And at this point, it doesn't matter about prep type. We'll just use that as an example. Under the advanced search, this is where you could start really distilling down what you're looking for. Let's say that you know, ethnic heritage is really important to you. I'm Italian, so I know you can't tell by looking at me, but my Italian heritage is incredibly important to me. I cook, I speak, all of that. So I'm going to try for an Italian donor. So I'm going to go to the European section and choose Italian. My wife is Puerto Rican, and that's really important to her and her heritage. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to choose Puerto Rican. I'm not at this time going to choose any of the additional characteristics here, but you can, if you're Rh negative, you're going to want to choose an Rh negative donor. Anything that your doctor recommends, you can do here with blood type and Rh. If you are a known carrier for a genetic disorder, you can use the genetic testing search to find donors who have been screened for that and are negative. I'm not going to go into detail about this because our genetic counselor, Suzanne Seitz, did an incredible webinar a couple of months ago that's available on our website for viewing. She did a full overview of, excuse me, the genetic screening that we do and how you use this genetic testing search. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would recommend going back and watching that webinar video. And if you have additional questions, I would just chat into CS and they can direct them where they need to go. You can get even more specific. If you know, astrological sign is important to you. You can choose that here. Proud Sagittarius, but I'm not going to choose that right now. If any subjects are important to you, if you know, science or literature, anything like that. Religion is one that a lot of people will use, but you can see here you can get really specific. Now I'm going to recommend to you that you don't get too specific on your first pass, because the more characteristics you choose, the less donors you're going to get, obviously. You know, if you're looking for somebody that is so specific, you're not necessarily likely to find exactly that. So let's just see what comes up here. 11 exact matches and then over 300 partial matches. The 11 looks good to me. So these are the guys, and you can see that they're either going to have Irish or Puerto Rican in their ethnic background, because that's what I had chosen, and the height is the other thing I had specified. And you automatically will see the childhood photo here, which is adorable. So that's one way to get started. Now, what I actually really like to do is I'm going to show you one of my favorite donors. I'm just obsessed with his childhood photo. I mean, come on, that's so cute, right? This is a great donor. He is, you can see here, he's bright, well-spoken. We have a great little get to know the donor section here for each guy. Once you click onto his profile, you see a little infographic here that gives you his height, his weight, his skin tone, eye and hair color. You get the sort of snippet summary of his ancestry, ethnic background. You know, if he has he has a music degree. That's great. He's currently a health coach. His interests are here. So you can see the fact that he has a pregnancy reported, you know, a lot of people look for that. Sometimes when we first release a donor to the catalog, he won't have any pregnancies reported because he just started selling, unless he himself has a child. We do count that toward one of the donor, like a donor family does count. So you can see we have that summary there. But over here is the menu of different products. So you can see the summary profile I mentioned to you. Two things I want to point out. If this donor were a non-ID donor and he changed his mind, you're going to want to scroll all the way down to the bottom here, and you would see under the section of updates that noted here. This is a great section to look for. This guy happens to be one of our newer donors, so if he is currently producing or has literally just stopped in the last, I would say, 6 months, you're not going to see any updates there. What this section is used for is something that's unique to Fairfax. When our donors retire, we start sending an annual update reminder to them. We have a secure website that the donors log into, and what they do is they provide updates to us. So if your donor has had any changes, you would find that here in the updates. For example, when most of these guys are in the program, they're young, their parents are young and healthy. Grandparents are fairly healthy, and if they haven't had anybody pass away, that's something that'll change over the next 10 years. So you're going to see multiple times. You'll see, update received 2020. Maternal grandfather passed away at 87 of a heart attack. You may see that. You may see completed a degree or had a child himself. Things like that. So this is something we do for all of our retired donors. We reach back annually. We track it, and it's updated here on the summary profile. The summary profile is it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a summary profile. So it gives you a sense of the donor's family and health history. The full medical profile is free to everybody. It's important information that everybody needs. And so you're able to get the entire medical profile, which is about the donor and his family history. You can scroll through. It lists, each family member that may have had any disorders would be listed here. The donor's individual medical history is listed. For example, he is a healthy young guy. He takes a multivitamin. He is nearsighted. Talks about what his usual weight is. The family medical history goes into the family's details. So you have all of that information. And then we have clips. So the audio clip is, you get to hear the donor himself. So you would basically, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but this is a 40-second clip of the donor giving an answer to a question. So you get to actually hear his voice. One of the products it says free on here because, again, remember, I have the unlimited access, but there is a cost to some of these items. The full audio interview is the donor sitting down with a staff member, and they basically go through and review, what's your favorite book, why, what characters did you relate to, what games did you play as a kid. It's a lot of get to know you. And then we try to end the interviews by talking about why they decided to be in the donor program, messages for children, things like that. So the audio interview tends to be a really popular item. Of course, we have the different photo options. Not all donors have adult or lifetime photo series. I would say 20 to 30% of our current donors do, and we are seeing more guys opt into that. So you can look to see if there are adult or lifetime photos for your donor. In this instance, you can see him as a kid and him as an adult, handsome guy. He also happens to have lifetime photos, which basically means it's a series of photos throughout his life from the childhood up to current. The personality type is another great product. It basically tells you, I don't know if anybody remembers the Myers-Briggs test that gives you your personality type. This tells you he happens to be an INFP, and then it gives you common traits and everything like that. So that's something that a lot of people really like. And then, of course, the important part here is, are there vials and can I buy them? So here we can see that this guy has IUI vials available, and he also has IUI art and ICI available, which is great. So he's got whatever you need. The price looks the same here because if you look, there are 2 IUI art vials, which are the same cost in this instance as the IUI vial. So you would just simply add them to your cart by clicking here, whatever quantity you wanted to purchase, and you can go through the cart process to check out. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Oh, sorry. All right, so if going through all of that is a little bit overwhelming, or if you just want a little bit more support and you'd like to have somebody assist you in the process, we have some great options for you. That there are quick questions. Christy, when she joins us for the Q&A, will be able to answer. We have the photo matching option, which is when you start by narrowing things down and give one of our incredible CS reps the up to 8 guys that you are interested in, and then you want to give them some photos and they'll help you narrow things down that way. Or you can basically just say to the CS rep, here's what I'm looking for, can you just help me? We also have a selection consultation service, which some people really like because they prefer to have something more interactive where they can actually meet with a CSR and speak to them and really have somebody supporting them through the whole process. And then we have a ton of resources on our website. I would highly recommend spending some time investigating the website, playing around, clicking through, reading information. We have a great blog that our marketing team is working on to really build some great content that's helpful for all of our clients. We have a newsletter you can sign up for on the website. It provides, newly released donors, promotes webinars, and the newsletters also have a really important easy link for pregnancy reporting, which I am a huge proponent of. Make sure you report your pregnancies and births. It's the way that we can track our families and limit to 25 families in the US. And of course, we have the incredible Fairfax Family Forums, which are getting a nice facelift. And that's a great resource for people to connect, whether it's wanting to talk about family building journeys, other people who've used your donor. Once you have a reported birth, you can connect to a private donor family forum. So if you use donor 1, 2, 3, 4, you could connect to other people that used it. And if you, are in the camp of those who believe that disclosure is important and you have shared the birth story with your child and they're a part of that journey, you may want to connect to other parents and half siblings that way. It's a wonderful resource for everything from the I'm just getting started through to I have a kid and they're about to turn 18 and ask for their donor's information. Let's talk about this. So I'd highly recommend visiting that. So hopefully at that point, you would be ready to choose your donor, place your order, and start your journey. Our client services department is incredible. We have really friendly, kind people that are going to help you through the process of purchasing your donor. You can chat with them on the website. You can call in. We do have emails as well. And I just want to get a sense of where we are. I did a lot of talking pretty quickly because I wanted to get through it so we could get to the Q&A and answer your questions. So if you could just let me know how confident you feel now. Like, do you feel like you could jump in and select a sperm donor at this point? You'll be able to answer the poll on your screen. Okay, great. So looks like most of you moved up to a medium understanding, which is great. It really is an important process in your journey. And so I think it does take some hands-on experience on the website, on the donor search, to really put those things into perspective and understand how everything works. So play around on the website and hopefully that will that'll keep moving you along, getting ready to become an expert, which almost 30% of you indicated that you feel like you're an expert now, which is fantastic. So as we move into our Q&A, I'd like to offer you a promo code, How to Choose Donor. This will save you the $130, which is the cost of the full unlimited access package, through the end of the month. The code will be up on the screen for you during the Q&A. So Morgan, Christy, can you join me?
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
We do have some good questions coming in, and then if everyone else wants to put them into the questions box, we're just going to go through and one by one kind of do a Q&A here with Michelle and Christy. So the first question we got today was, how long does it take to get the vials when you order them?
I can help with that one. Great question. It's going to be totally dependent really on you. We offer 2 shipping types throughout the US. Standard is 2 business days. We also offer an overnight delivery, so we can get it to you pretty quickly. Always recommend that you talk to your clinic before placing your order to find out the exact delivery date. Sometimes I want it there early and we can help with that too. I would never recommend to wait till the last minute, but if it's a last minute situation, we can help you. So it's pretty quick.
And we have a follow-up question to that as well. Do some people not have vials available until you order them?
I'm not exactly sure. If the donor doesn't have availability on the catalog, you can't actually place an order.
That's correct.
Yeah, maybe we're misunderstanding this question. If the person who put this in wants to clarify, we're happy to take another look at this.
Yeah.
Here's a longer question. Michelle, can you talk a little bit more about how mental illness, which as depression, anxiety, etc., or autism in the family, if applicable, are reflected in a donor's profile? Is it self-reported and based on the donor's honesty, or is it possible to detect that in a genetic test?
This is an incredibly good question. There's a lot to unpack in there, so let me start at the beginning. The medical application, and which feeds to the medical profile, is self-reported. This is a form that the prospective donors complete reporting their and their family's medical history, which includes physical and mental health history. They would report everything from situational anxiety or depression to a clinical diagnosis of anxiety or depression, the same way that they would report, high blood pressure or diabetes or heart disease in a relative, or, well, it wouldn't be themselves if it wasn't, they wouldn't be accepted in the program. But one of so the short answer to that is yes, it is self-reported. Now that information is verified at multiple points. They complete a medical application online, and then they sit down and they do a full donor interview with our staff, and that does include a full review of that medical application where they are verbally verifying to the staff member the information. And I will say, often during that interview, additional information comes to light because our staff can actually get in there and ask questions about it. We get our information about a diagnosis, treatment, if it was somebody who passed away, what the cause of death was, all of those details are reported. And just as an aside, as an anecdote, when I first started, one of the things I was doing were these donor interviews. And I will never forget, it was one of my first donor interviews, and the candidate actually pulled out his cell phone and called his mom to ask about his grandma's history. These guys are really thorough in the information they're giving us. Now, I do want to add to that we have implemented something called the PAI, which is a psychological screening tool that mental health providers use. This is a tool that it's a multi-page questionnaire booklet that the prospective donors complete on site in the presence of a staff member, and it's a really well-respected tool that is used to identify psychopathologies. So if the donor himself were to not indicate to us, not report to us that he is depressed or has anxiety or has some type of mental illness diagnosis, it would appear on this PAI result. We work with a wonderful practitioner to score the results and interpret them. And we do this on all of our incoming donors. We've been doing it for the last couple of years. So that has to do with the mental health part of the question. In terms of autism, it would be reflected in the profile like any other condition. There's an entire section for that. And then, let's see, is it self? Yeah, okay, so we answered that. And I do just want to add, so in terms of both the mental illness portion of the question and the autism spectrum portion of the question, there is no clear genetic screen available for that at this time, especially with autism spectrum disorders. Those are multifactorial, which means that there could be multiple genes involved, but also environmental factors that determine both the onset and severity of the autism spectrum disorder. In terms of mental health, there have been some genes that have been identified to be involved in things like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, but again, there's not like a clear definitive, if you have a mutation in this gene at this location, you will have this mental health diagnosis. So there is not a way for us to test for that or screen for that with genetic testing at this time. That was a lot. I hope it was clear.
We have another question about the PAI results. Where are they on the profile?
So the results are not on the profile. If either the donor passes or he doesn't pass the PAI, if there is an indication of a psychopathology, the donor is not accepted into the donor program. He is rejected from the program.
Okay. Changing the subject a little bit, someone says, I find that childhood pictures are not the best indicator if someone grows up to look. How many percentage-wise of your donors have adult photos?
Yeah, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 20 to 30% of the guys have adult or lifetime photos.
About, yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Another question here about genetic testing. When they say carriers for certain things, can you explain how risky that is?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a pause on that for a second. I do want to just go back because I thought we could look at this really quickly. Thought is photo, did I miss it?
Yeah, you missed it.
Oh,
at
it's
the
up
top.
here. Okay. So adult photos, yes, that's the only thing I'm selecting. And let's see what number we get. So, oh geez, okay, 175 is great. So there's 175 out of 460. So 38%, I was wrong. So closer to 40. So there's the answer to the photo question. Okay, sorry about that. I just was going to get stuck on that.
We were rounding down there, Michelle. Sorry about that.
We were being humble. That's what we were doing.
Christy, this is for you. It says, I live in Canada. How does this affect my selection? I've been told I may not have certain vials available to me.
Great question. I would highly recommend that if you're shipping within Canada, that you are on our Canadian version of the website. If you're on the home page or actually any of the pages, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, I think Michelle is going to show us, there's a little arrow there, and there's different countries that you can choose from. You'll see USA, UK, Canada, Brazil. If you go up over there, you go.
Here we go.
So if you click on CA English, from there, you'll be able to see the search that's available for you within Canada, and you'll be able to still have many options to choose from. And the search looks identical, so you have all the options available to you, but you'll just see the donors that are eligible to ship to you within Canada.
Yeah, I love the little flag icon to make sure that you're on the right page.
Yes.
Another question from another person in Canada. They said, in Canada, do we order directly through Fairfax or do we have to order through someone else?
We work with several distributors, Can-Am Cryo and ReproMed. Their information is on the Canadian site, and you will actually work with them directly to place and ship your order within Canada as of right now.
Okay. Another question here, Michelle, this might be good for you. Someone wants to know about the donor's motivation, and they say, what makes a man usually want to donate sperm?
Yeah, I was really curious about this too. So my background wasn't originally reproductive. I was doing a lot of cancer research, and when I first came to the cryobank over 14 years ago, I was really curious as to why these guys would want to donate. So as you know, the researcher in me wanted, I did a survey. So I surveyed current and past donors, and I've redone this survey of a couple of years just to ask about motivation. And as I mentioned, we also asked that question in the audio interview. I found that a large number of our donors, I think it was 40% in the last survey, identified that part of the reason they were motivated to donate sperm was because they knew someone who was in some way affected by social or medical infertility, meaning you know, either they needed to use a donor because they didn't have a sperm provider, or they were dealing with male or female infertility. Interestingly, I also had a couple of write-in answers from people who had adopted siblings, which I thought was really lovely. So, you know, the examples would be one of our current donors, his sister and her wife had to use a sperm donor to have a child, and it just inspired him to do it. Or another one of our donors indicated that his best friend and his wife were having trouble conceiving, and it turned out that his good friend was dealing with a really low sperm count. And so he thought, geez, if I have good, healthy sperm and I can help somebody, why not? So it's that. But then, of course, there is also a financial component. The guys are reimbursed for their time and travel. Being a sperm donor is not easy. If you're interested in that process, we do have another webinar about our screening process. The guys have to go through extensive testing and screening, and they have to maintain 72 to 96 hours of sexual abstinence before each deposit. And so it does affect their lifestyle. So there is also that financial component, but we've also found that a large percentage of our donors have donated, our regular blood donors have donated plasma or on lists for bone marrow. There is a significant component of altruism, which I just think is really lovely and kind, that people want to do something to help and add something positive to the world, which is especially inspiring in our current situation.
We have a lot of questions coming in. So the next one here, if the donor has a medical or genetic issue that shows after donating, do they contact Fairfax directly?
Yes, this is incredibly important. So I mentioned that pregnancy and birth reporting are critical to the cryobank. Along with that are any adverse birth observations. So if you have a child and they are born with a condition, a medical condition, or if there's an issue during pregnancy, we need to know that. And we really, really value our clients and want to be able to help shepherd them through the process of that reporting. Our CS staff is great, our genetic staff is great. What happens is a full medical evaluation will occur. So if a child is born and it's identified that they have, let's say, a genetic disorder, our staff, including our medical director, who is a board certified pediatric medical geneticist, he and our genetic counseling staff will review the medical records, speak to the client's doctors, get all of the information they need. And if it is determined that there is even the possibility of causation from the donor side of things, for example, if it's a condition that doesn't have a specific gene identified, but they know that it is genetic in origin, and if we know that it came, if it wasn't spontaneous and we know that there's a causative influence of the paternal gamete, the sperm, then what we do is we do restrict and we limit. We either don't distribute any more sperm or only distribute with an informed consent. And what happens is our staff reaches out to anybody who purchased that donor and would inform them of the situation. And Suzanne's great. Again, I think she talks a little bit about this in that genetics webinar. She's such a soothing, kind presence and is really very good at talking our clients through and helping them to understand what can be really complicated when it comes to the genetics and health of the child. But we do put that information in the summary profile as well. You can always look up your donor on the website and find that information out, but we do proactively reach out and inform people. But we need that information to be reported to us, and then we need to review the medical information. So communication, even after your purchase and after your child's born, is still really important. The relationship with the cryobank is not a one-time thing. This is an ongoing lifetime relationship.
I'm getting some questions about home insemination. How can I go about home insemination? Is at-home IUI common?
No. Okay. So we've done webinars on home insems, and those are also available on the website. The last one that we did, Kate Wisda, who is our nurse practitioner in our Pasadena insemination clinic, presented, and she went through all of the options of ICI at home and IUIs. An IUI is a medical procedure. In that procedure, a catheter is inserted through the cervix into the uterus. And because it's a medical procedure, it really is not recommended to be done at home. A medical provider should be doing that procedure in a sterile office setting. Anytime that you're crossing any kind of barrier in the body, there's a risk of infection, there's a risk of cramping, there's a risk of tearing membranes. It's not worth that risk to do an IUI at home, unless your partner is is a, somebody who's a medical professional to do it. You definitely can't do an IUI on yourself. ICI and in-home insemination with an ICI, you could do it yourself. A partner could do it. It's in that instance, you're taking not a catheter, a syringe, sorry, had a moment there, taking a needleless syringe and you're pulling the sample up into it and you're just inserting that into the vagina. And when you expel the sample, it's going to be on the cervix, which is basically what happens with sperm in heterosexual or in heterosexual sex. So IUIs do not do at home. Have a medical professional do that. An ICI is pretty easy to do at home, and we provide you with instructions and a syringe in your shipment if you let our CSR know that that's what your plan is. But again, explore that webinar. There's lots of information on there, and Kate is fantastic.
Christy, we have some questions about inventory and wait list. One here says, can we see how many vials of a donor are available in order to avoid missed opportunities for future vial orders if we want to potentially have a second child that is related to the first? And then some people want to know as well, if donors are not available, then why are they listed on the website?
Okay, great questions. In regards to the first question, if you're looking for the exact availability, we don't provide that online, but you can definitely reach out to the CS team by phone, by email, and we can give you a more exact number. The site will tell you if there's availability for sure. There'll be a yes there. If there's a call, it'll let you know that the availability is getting low, less than 10 vials, but you can call us for more exact information. And there'll also be, sometimes it'll say no. Perfect, Michelle, thank you. You can see that little key there. So we have, I don't know if you can go back, but it has like a little check mark with a circle for yes, the hourglass for waiting list, X for no, and then the phone for call. So you can at least get an idea online what's going on with the donor, but you can call us for more exact information. I can always give that to you.
You can also
and then
see
I think
on
the
the
other
individual,
was, yeah.
On the individual donors profile page, you can also see, if it's not available. If you recall, on the last donor that I had, he didn't have ICI art, so that was shadowed out. Go ahead, Christy, sorry.
Exactly. Yes, no, it's okay. In regards to the other question, why would we keep the donors on the site? Even if the donor has nothing available, we will always keep the donors available on the website. We have many clients who don't like to purchase any information until after they've had a positive pregnancy test. Some clients like to go back and review information after they've had a birth. As Michelle was talking about earlier, the summary profile will always have updated information. So we will never remove them. That's kind of why we have that key there to give you an idea of what's going on in regards to availability. And then when in doubt, just contact CS and we can give you some more exact details on the specific donor.
Okay, and then a follow-up question. If I were to purchase multiple vials, would you keep the vials, extra vials in storage for me until I needed them?
Yes, we can definitely do that for you. We offer storage here at our Fairfax facility and our other sites. We can keep vials for you as long as you need. One of the benefits to storing with us is that if the vials never leave our facility, you can always return them back to us for a 50% refund. So it kind of gives you that little bit of insurance policy there. And a lot of clients find that very helpful. So yes, we can definitely help you with storage.
And that's actually beneficial for other clients, because if you pre-purchase and you fulfill your family and you're ready to be finished and you have, let's say, 3 or 4 vials left and you can sell them back, then some other client who wants to have another child maybe would have that option. So that's why we really like the option when people choose to store with us. And just a side note, if you are storing with us at any of our 6 locations, you can also pick vials up and take them yourself to your clinic or home, rather than having to pay for shipping multiple times.
So I guess sort of related to that, can you reserve vials in order to avoid shipping costs in case a third vial isn't needed?
That would be a storage, I guess. Yeah, kind of what we just talked about. Yeah, so you can definitely reserve or store them here with us. highly recommend if you have the means and you're able to, just purchase whatever you think you'll need up front, and that way we can store it for you for if and when you need it, because we can never guarantee availability at any time for any donor. And I've talked to many clients who call back several years later looking to purchase vials for a sibling purchase, and the donor is just completely done with the program and there's nothing available. So yes, if able, I highly recommend purchase up front and store it.
Is there a limit to how many wait lists you can be on?
There is, yes. So currently we are allowing our clients to be on up to 3 waiting lists at one time. And we do that to keep it fair, so all clients have a chance to get on a list that they would really like. So the cap is 3 right now.
Okay. It says, if I join a wait list now, is it possible to be able to purchase within the month?
Unfortunately, with the waiting list, we never have an exact time frame of if and when additional vials will release. I would recommend that you contact CS with your donor number so we can look into it and give you a little bit more information if the donor is active or not, if we're expecting anything additional. But we'll never have a guarantee of a certain time frame of when you could order. We would release anything.
Michelle, for you, we have a question here. I have 8 eggs that need to be fertilized. Will 1 vial be enough? Will embryos be made then stored, or would I need to purchase another vial if I tried to do a second pregnancy?
Okay, this is a great question. So you're going to need to speak to your medical professional for the details of how they would proceed. But typically when somebody's doing frozen egg and frozen donor sperm, that means that you're doing IVF, and either you're going to carry, or a gestational carrier is going to carry for you. So what typically happens is they would do multiple eggs to fertilize, but you would not need multiple vials. There are more than enough sperm in 1 vial to fertilize potentially all 8 of those eggs. But the reason you need to speak to your medical provider is to find out if they're going to do all 8 of those eggs in 1 IVF cycle, or if they're if they're going to try fertilization with all 8 of the eggs at one time, or if they wanted to do some and then do some later. If that's the case, if they're not going to do all 8, then you would need a second vial for that second batch. You can't freeze and thaw. Well, we don't recommend that you freeze and thaw the vials multiple times. It's not, it compromises the quality of the sperm. So I hope that answers the question. So basically 1 vial is technically enough for all 8 eggs if they're going to create embryos all at the same time. If they're only going to do some of the eggs, you're going to need a sperm for each time they're going to try to fertilize the eggs. Once the embryos are created, depending on your medical provider, they may do a single embryo or a double embryo transfer into the uterus of whoever's going to carry, whether that's you or a gestational carrier or a partner. Excuse me. At that point, the remaining embryos would then be frozen and stored. And we can do that storage for you as well long-term if your clinic and or physician doesn't do long-term storage. If I didn't answer that question, put a note in as another question, and I'll clarify if I can.
Another question we got here for you, Michelle, is what percentage of donors are accepted into the program?
Ooh, low. I'm going to say about 1% of our initial applicants. So think of it like a funnel. If 200 guys apply at the very top, about 50% of them make it to the medical application. About 50% of those guys make it to the screening in person. About 30 to 40% of those guys make it to the testing and the physical, and about 1 of the original 200 will actually receive what we call final approval. It's not easy to get into the donor program. We used to say it's easier to get into an Ivy League school than it is to get into a sperm donor program, statistically. I don't know if that's still true, but it's very challenging because there's a lot of information. It's a combination of family medical history suitability, the donor's actual semen sample, because you have to realize we're not just looking for healthy sperm, we're looking for above average sperm that can not only pass a fresh evaluation, but that can survive that freeze thaw process. Because every sample that we process, we take a very small volume of that and we create a test file. And we thaw it so that we can do a post-thaw analysis to know how that sample is going to survive that freeze thaw, so that we can determine what the post-thaw motility and count per vial is going to be. You know, so we're looking for really exceptional individuals with exceptional health and willingness to have the abstinence hours and lifestyle choices necessary. You know, they have to eat healthy, and things like environmental factors and all of that can really affect specimen quality. So, you know, it's a real commitment from the guys to be a sperm donor. I like to talk, obviously. I'm giving you really long answers for simple. The simple answer is 1%. So we're right at 3 o'clock. Christy and Morgan and I are willing to keep going on a couple more questions, let's say for a couple more minutes, and then anything that we can't get to, we will try to answer in a blog post.
Yep. There are a lot of questions, so we apologize. We can't get into all of them. The next one here, when the child turns 18, does the donor get their info, or does the child get the donor's info? How does that work?
We never give donors recipient or child info. Even when your child requests the information, we're still not giving the donor your kid's information. The flow of contact information is from the donor to us to your child. So your 18-year-old or older child will contact the cryobank. We, as a courtesy, are going to reach out. We reach out to the donor and let them know that somebody's requested their information and ask them if they have a preferred method of contact. You know, it can, as you can imagine, it can be a little, it's a big deal. It's a big deal when a donor conceived individual is going to contact their donor. And so the donor, we do this out of courtesy to the donor to just give them a heads up. And they may prefer email over a phone call or something like that. So they have a certain number of time to reply to us and let us know that information. And then if they don't get back to us in a timely manner, we're still going to release their contact info to your kid. Your child will get that info, and then they will be able to reach out. If we did get in touch with the donor in that 5 or 7 day window, I'm sorry, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, and he indicates a preferred method, we will let your child know that so that they have that information. Not just as a heads up from our experience and from the adoption community, not all individuals do reach out. Even once they have the identifying information, they may not reach out immediately or ever. It's incredibly personal, and the relationships that can result are wonderful. It can also be a super simple exchange of information. It runs the gamut, but we won't confirm or release information about you or your child to anyone.
Another question, a couple of questions we're getting. If the vials say more than 10 million motile sperm, is there a specific range? So we're getting some questions about what kind of guarantee for the quality of these vials that we give.
Sure. So the specimen quality standard is 10 million total motile sperm per standard vial. So not art. Art is anywhere between, well, it's greater than 6 million. The vials, as you can imagine, in order to adhere to that and in order to meet that expectation, we're actually putting more than that into the vial. So it can be it can be significantly more. It can be right at 10, it can be 11 million. The reason we put more in there is that there's a lot of variability. Once the specimen leaves our hands, once it's in the hands of another technician or, clinic, we're not then controlling how the sample is handled. We have a very specific thaw protocol that we send along with each vial that will give you the optimum post-thaw results. But it can really range anywhere. You know, some vials may have, I don't even know what to say. It can anywhere over 10 million, but what is generally accepted in the field is that you need around 10 million total motile cells for an insemination.
It says, how important is it to ensure you and your donor have matching CMV test results?
We always get this question. It really depends on your medical provider. There are some providers that insist that if you are CMV negative, they will only allow you to use a CMV negative donor. Now, I'm going to try to be brief here. This is not my strong point, but I'm going to try. CMV status on the donor search indicates antibody. It indicates that a donor has been exposed at some point to CMV in their life, and they are producing antibodies to CMV. There are two types of antibodies that you can look for in testing. It's IgG and IgM. And I'm not going to get into all of this with you, but what's important to note is that if IgM is positive, that means that somebody has an active infection. None of the samples that are being distributed have reactive IgM results. It just indicates that the donor at some point has had a CMV infection. We do two tests. We do a CMV antibody test, which, like I said, is a total antibody. It's what's required by the regulatory bodies. Starting this year, we started breaking it out as a reflex, where if somebody comes back total antibody positive, we do that IgG and IgM. And if they're IgM positive, they're deferred, no samples are kept. Along with that, and historically, we've also done CMV NAT testing, which is a nucleic acid testing. It's actually looking for the viral DNA in the semen sample. So if that's detected, that sample is discarded, we back test, identify when the donor seroconverted, and throw away all of the inventory that was affected. So you're never going to get a vial of sperm with active CMV virus in it. So some providers know that and say, it doesn't matter, pick whatever donor you want. Other providers want to be really cautious and say, let's not even risk it. If you're negative, go for a negative donor. Now, if you're CMV positive, go for anyone. That's my sort of short answer.
Someone wants to know if we have any additional webinars coming up.
We do. In early November, we're going to have Kate Wisda, who I mentioned. She is our nurse practitioner in our Pasadena location. She's going to be doing a how to prepare your body for pregnancy webinar, either the first or second week of November. And that information we'll promote on our website and in our newsletters.
Great.
Anything else?
We have lots and lots of questions, but I think we'll just have to kind of wrap up and answer the rest of them on the blog.
Okay, sounds good. Morgan, thank you for moderating the Q&A, and Christy, thank you for your experience and knowledge and for helping out with the questions.
Thanks, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, and thank all of you for attending and being a part of the webinar. It was a pleasure, and you will get a copy of the webinar and the Q&A in your email. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.